What's up, guys? Mitch from Respect My Region back again with another episode of the RMR Podcast. Today, I'm joined by special guest Guy Rocourt, CEO of Papa and Barkley. How you doing today, Guy?
I'm good, man. I'm good and hanging in there.
Joining us from down there, you said in the land of weed, man. Where exactly abouts are you today?
I'm in Humboldt County. Arcata specifically is the town. Papa and Barkley has manufacturing facilities throughout the city of Eureka, and I'm in the next town over at home right now.
Awesome.
Surrounded by redwoods and weed.
Yeah, it's you see the green fence lines out there. I'm not sure if it's changed in the last couple of years, but the green, was it tarped or whatever, fence lines all over
Yeah.
up in there.
Well, I think the good news is many people have been able to drop the tarps because they don't care if people see their weed. You know, it's all compliant now for the most part.
Yeah. It's still, but for many years you drive through there, it's pretty obvious what's happening, man. It has an aroma everywhere you go.
Exactly. No, we've been doing it right here for a while, and kudos to the small farmers. And we've had some hard times. Cannabis is difficult in California. The fires here have been crazy in Humboldt County. Not only the Paradise Fire, we saw a lot of folks, just lose their homes and everything. And last year, they were fighting fires in Willow Creek. We have cannabis farmers that it's not whether they either lost their farm completely or their crop got smoked out, rendering it unusable. So yeah, I'm hoping for, I kind of wish it was raining right now. It's awesome and it's beautiful, but we need the rain and we need to get to some more environmental practices to stop the fires.
Absolutely. It's definitely been getting bad these last few years. But I start every episode off with our guest origin story around the plant being cannabis. So both kind of personally and professionally, I'm just kind of curious your origin story with cannabis, Guy.
Sure. Like most folks, I dabbled in cannabis a little bit in high school. I remember smoking those brass bowls, barely being able to get it lit, not really understanding press, I'm old enough to have taken seeds out of my weed and scraped my fair share of resin throughout college. Of course, definitely got down with cannabis. But it really wasn't until I graduated and met Montel Williams on a movie set. I originally was in entertainment, and he had MS, and he was using cannabis therapeutically, and I really started to understand the true power of the plant. And at one point in my career, I came out to California right in 1998, and this whole 2015 thing was happening, and I was like, wow, cannabis then just meets the eye. And advocating with Montel, I really started to see, okay, this became a passion. Like, luckily, knock on wood, I've been pretty healthy, but I saw this helping everybody. And my longtime growing partner had Crohn's, and it was like, okay, wait, there are people that need this. And of course, I could never understand why. Like most people, like when you know the science, you're like, why is cannabis prohibited again? Like, I don't even get it. And so, yeah, I dove deeply into cannabis in about 1998, 1999. At one point, I started growing a little bit. 2 lights became 4 lights, became 8 lights. We had these no-doc loan houses. And before you know it, I was like putting the ladies up. And by 2008, when the whole world seemed like it was crashing, I had these thriving ladies paying rent. And it was awesome. Of course, I wish that, cannabis had been legalized then. And, being a little bit of an outlaw was stressful for me and my family, but I don't regret it. It was the right thing to do. And that's how I got my start in cannabis, really as an indoor cultivator, first advocating, then just providing access in the form of actual produced units to go to dispensaries. And then I was fortunate enough around 2010, when we saw the first e-cig, like many people, I was like, ooh, cannabis should be in that, right? So, of course, we endeavored to figure out with our propylene glycol mixes, some of the old school disgusting e-juice mixes, we figured out how to put cannabis in that. And of course, I start sending those back east like you do. And, sending 100 vape carts is nobody's even checking for that back then compared to sending units. And of course, these Wall Street guys get wind of this vape pen thing, and they're like, oh, they forgot about cannabis, and now all of a sudden they're sleeping. So like, oh, we got to start a business. And so my first business was actually a vape pen business in Colorado with some VC guys. And that's when I realized I still had a lot more advocacy work to do. And so I came back to California. And when I was a little bit younger, feels like forever, but just 10 years ago, all I wanted was rotovaps and short path distillation machines. I just wanted the science things that we were denied in the early days. And now I'm just blessed to have realized We didn't need all that shit.
Mm.
And solventless and clean cannabis and mechanical separation. There's plenty of ways to get vape pens, edibles, concentrates without using not even one chemical.
Man, that is a impactful story, and I think it's crazy. I've read about the connection with Montel Williams, and it's interesting that he was really one of the first like public celebrities, I feel like, that was advocating for medical cannabis. At least in my in my lifetime. I'm 34. I remember him specifically. I just remember when people like, yo, Montel Williams blows trees. When I was younger, we're like, what? The talk show guy? Like like people didn't, just knowing that he smoked weed and was on TV made it somewhat like, wow, I can't believe that. I don't know anybody that smokes weed like that. So it's crazy that you were connected at such an early level with one of the first influencers of cannabis, if you will.
No, look, it was the best use of his platform, and Montel's the real one. It's like not only medically, but he realized the hypocrisy of it. He served in the military like I did, and like especially around Veterans Affairs, PTSD. It's like cannabis could be such a better help than all these other toxic things that we're giving our vets after they've served us. It's like, yeah, he's passionate about the plant across the board from day one. And yeah, back then, when you think about Montel, that upstanding kind of like guy helping families, on his talk show, and then for him to come out, talk about cannabis use, not only with his MS, and then further with the vets and just normalizing cannabis. Yeah, amazing work. And he's still continuing to do it today.
Yeah, huge. We got to give a salute to Montel. That's a crazy story, and crazy that how you're involved with that. So recently, as of this year, I know you were appointed CEO at Papa and Barkley, but you've been a co-founder and holding various titles there over the years. What's changed other than in the title with this kind of recent change over there?
Yeah, man, look, I've been having a strong cannabis vision for a while, and I'm blessed to have a lot of partners along the game. And I've been growing professionally, and the company's been growing. And so, yeah, I started making all these great products. And of course, at one point, I can't make all of them. So we started hiring other artisans. So I have a great hash maker making the best hash in California, 2 years running, great edibles maker, great chocolatier. And so as the team grew, I just kept, pushing up and leveling up to like have this great cannabis vision. And now as CEO, I have a vision of our ampersand, Papa and Barkley, or Papa Select, or P&B Kitchen. We have a mark. Like when you think about Nike, you think about Adidas, like, those symbols and they mean something. Well, we have a first mover advantage, and we want our ampersand to mean something in California. And so if you were to go to, let's say, a MedMen where we're partnering with them and we have like one of these tables, you walk in, every product I have has certain values. One, they're all solventless, right? So they're all hash, ice water hash, keef, or some kind of lipid infusion, right? They're all chemical free, right? All the packaging is sustainable. All the input product comes from Humboldt, right? So it's just like, excuse my dog there. All these cultural elements and, just passion for cannabis. I often say the biggest, the best ingredient in our products is not THC, it's TLC, right? And I want the ampersand to stand for that, where consumers can walk into a dispensary and clear the clutter and be like, oh, I know that if P&B is dropping some shit, it's the real thing, right? Our Select product, not just first place, but first, second, and third Emerald Cup wins 2 years running for ice. That's because of our farming partners right here locally that are just growing the fire in is fire out. On the topical side, on the tincture side, we, in many ways, defined wellness at the dispensary, right? We pushed these products that were so efficacious to newbies. When you put something on somebody, your grandmother or your grandfather's hands, they're just like, oh, amazing. And you're like, yeah, that's cannabis. That leads them to a tincture, leads them to the capsules they need. Before you know it, they're off their Oxycontin, they're off their Advil, they're using their CBD and getting greater mobility. And, we call that the P&B funnel. We see that in the desert with the snowbirds there. So yeah, I'm on a mission. And so, yeah, I started making the products as I founded the company with my partners, Adam and Ellie and Scott. But as we've taken in money and leveled up, I've just continued to drive this vision and just be that passionate, like, I want to take that money from Wall Street to make this happen, but I got to have the realness. And I think over the years, my partners have seen that, like, we can be quote unquote stoners, but also be business people. I understand what my bottom line is, but I also understand where I come from. And what I've been telling them recently is like, how you get 1,000% margin when people respect your culture, your lineage and where you come from, because what's going to separate my products is that I'm the real. And so you are going to pay more for my products, but you're going to know my story. You're going to know that TLC was put into it. You see that in the wine industry. You see that in other industries. Why shouldn't we have it? A lot of these new cannabis producers out here are just like trying to make a buck. I'm trying to build a top shelf of cannabis, right? And so, yeah, it's been working. I mean, it's definitely like a dream come true. That's for sure.
I love that. And you know, honestly, with you guys, I have a couple questions that I want to build off that. But one of them is like, you know, Papa and Barkley's really etched its name alongside, you know, I don't necessarily want to call it, you know, wellness because that's such a vague, large sector, but you guys have really carved out like a good hold, whether it's in the topicals or the CBD only, or just the, you know, more sustainability, like this wholesome wellness. I can't think of just a singular word to describe it, but how have you guys, what has gone into just being synonymous with that side of the business in California and beyond?
Yeah, so you know, when we started this, I like to say that California has, or that we have, an expanded definition of wellness. And I'll remind everybody that even right now, we go to dispensaries that by definition are putting out products that are good for you. We are not going to liquor stores, we're not going to grocery stores, we're going to dispensaries, which means we're going there for wellness. I mean, that's the definition. I know that we have adult use and it's no longer medical cannabis or medical marijuana. We've dropped that whole Trojan horse, but cannabis has always been about wellness, right? The feds and other haters might want to try to do recreational or adult use, but for all of us, the healing of the plant has been obvious, right? No matter how we've been painted, it's always been about that mindset, that vibe, that love, that healing, always. So of course, we're synonymous with that. I think it's the others that might be out of step, right? I do take issue sometimes when folks dumb it down a little bit or make it a little too drug culture, right? I'm trying to keep a high bar. I don't have a problem with, let's say, like, you know, some products that are like, let's say, some grape flavored BHO vape pens. Okay, look, I drink grape soda. I'm not hating on that. There are levels to this. But for us, we want it to be at that top level, that connoisseur level where it's not about stop, drop, and glob. It's about single grams that are over $100 that are like curated to the best terps where you can see individual trichomes, right? It's about edibles that have nothing else but the rosin that's driving the flavor, right? That's not easy to do. That's love to say, I'm going to make this extract. I'm going to decarb this extract with heat, but keep all them terpenes in there so it can drive an edible product so you can actually taste the strain. These are the things, that's the kind of innovation we're going for. Right? But wellness has always been the through line. I am the one to walk into a dispensary and clown them and be like, how do you have high fructose corn syrup in that? Now you're just trying to make a buck off my industry. It's like, if you want to be a cannabis provider, it should be wellness. Cannabis, the healing of the plant, the natural aspects of the plant, we don't need to forget about that. Think about the world we live in. Where I grew up, we had white bread, we had white sugar, and now we have brown sugar, we have wheat breads. We are going to less refinement and more natural things across the board. So why wouldn't we just start there with cannabis, right? Why would we try to distill, over-process, over-refine this natural plant that we've always taken in a natural form? Smoking was the primary way of taking cannabis. And is that wellness? Yeah, it is. You know, so I appreciate you saying that, because I'm proud to be kind of associated with that wellness vibe of cannabis. And now more than ever, that ampersand stretches all categories, whether it's our Cannagars in collaboration with, Albert Einstein or Albert Einstein, or whether it's our simple topicals that the oldest newbie can take in, right? Or whether it's our top high-end concentrates. Like, whatever you're thinking about, I want to create that high-end product that is the best quality.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think you guys have done that, and that's interesting. I thank you for sharing that, because it's across this industry, it's so fragmented, and so many companies try to be so many things with no direction. And so I think that's something that allows you guys to kind of navigate between the THC and the CBD, from a balm for your grandma to a rosin for the heads, you know what I mean? And still be able to do that authentically, right? Because if it wasn't, you get called out and it wouldn't be doing what it's doing in the market right now.
Absolutely. And look, with the CBD thing, I want to be clear. What we believe in one plant. The feds have artificially separated CBD out. What we offer nationally is because I believe, you know, if you live in Idaho and you need some safe access, at least I can present to you this. But our CBD products are still all solventless. They're made from a rosin. Of course, we source plants, whether it's in Oregon or Vermont, that have, flowers you could smoke. And we shake those flowers, get that keef, rest in peace, Frenchie, those fresh fruits come off. We press that into a rosin and we make our tinctures, we make our bombs. So the quality of the products on the national side are exactly like what they are in California. Not because we have to, because we want to.
Mhm.
You know what's happening on the CBD side with all these carpetbaggers trying to make it like, I can't, right? So we are, I'm trying to keep that integrity while providing safe access. I know that like people get caught up and be like, oh, CBD is something different. It's the same to us. It always has been. And it's also one of the reasons why we haven't gotten into like the Delta 8s or that kind of stuff, because that's for somebody else. I'm not going to disparage it, but I grow and process and manufacture great cannabis products, naturally occurring cannabinoids that can be derived in a solventless way, right? That includes CBD. And since we've been able to do that, we offer them online.
And when it comes to sourcing, the THC products in California, obviously you guys look to the Emerald Triangle, and that's something I've known about your guys' brand for a while. How much of that is just due to the legacy, and how much of it is due to the appellation and just kind of the products that are grown out there? Or do you kind of see the legacy and the appellation? I mean, do they just go hand in hand for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, the legacy and appellation go hand in hand. And here at Papa and Barkley, we are big proponents of trying to push that forward, right? I want Humboldt and Mendo and Trinity and all counties and regions to have their appellation. And appellation and terroir are not just where it's grown, it's also how it's grown, right? So there's a little infighting now as we struggle to figure out, what does Humboldt cannabis, for instance, mean? But it is important and it should have value like Napa, right? And that is about the legacy of growing and all the different microclimates and our ability to pollen chuck and create the new, right? So we're going to get our due. We just need to get our eggs in the basket. That being said, I'm also proud to understand the economics of the biomass. And the fact is there are super grows opening in Lake County, in Santa Barbara and whatnot. And, at one point you have to look at like what's going on. That being said, we are very partial to Humboldt because, like I said earlier, our farmers have been under siege. It's quite difficult. The taxing situation and the way even licenses rolled out in Humboldt had made it more difficult. So the more we can partner with our farms and get most of our biomass locally, for now, that's the right thing, even though we're not really getting any marketing or uptick for that, right? Like there is no real benefit to the appellation yet. Some people know Humboldt. Does it resonate with the consumer? Right now, our research isn't showing that. Do we want to make it resonate with the consumer? Absolutely, right? I mean, a few years ago, the consumer didn't even really know what solventless is. Now people are starting to understand that and be like, oh, what? Like whether it's a vape pen, whether it's, people are oh wait, I want hash in my edibles, right? Now people, it's like starting to click in. There was, the 250, 300,000 of us that had scripts before this all went down in 2016. We already knew what was what. It's the other millions that we're drawing in that, they take a little while to educate. And as they get educated, they start to realize, oh, wait, there's this way of getting this clean, awesome cannabis, and we should look into it, right? I'm loving that. Seeing people's mindset change and be like, oh, wait, it's not just cannabis like that I get on the street and run away and make like I didn't buy it. Like I can actually educate and dive deeper. Yeah, that's how you get those margins. And so for our appellation and our legacy, I want to build that. I want to make sure we put that on a pedestal. I don't want MSOs to come over here and like roll over that, right? Because the way we're going to be like Napa, the way we're going to get $1,000 of wine, the way we're going to spend, instead of $25 for the average eighth, $100, $150 for an eighth, it's because it's some fire that came from somewhere, from respected growers, respected artisans. Right now, what we don't have in our industry is respected artisans, right? You have Jungle Boys and stuff, but you mostly have like alpha consumers. No disrespect to Jay-Z or Seth Rogen or Willie Nelson, but those guys are not cannabis growers. They're alpha consumers. Yeah, they get down with some weed. There's no question. But what we need now is start to elevate folks who make products. That's why in our company, it's important that the artisans are front and center, right? I'm always going to tell you, that's my hash maker, right? It doesn't matter that I'm CEO. It matters that that person made my gummies because they know how to work with the cannabis input and make it taste like something awesome. Not mask the taste of cannabis, but elevate the taste of cannabis so that we're creating something that is new. There are some of our gummies now that I feel like you taste them and you're like, wow, that flavor, I can only get that here because it's not just watermelon. It's watermelon with a hint of cannabis and some hint of chili. And like, wow, that Lindsay lady made it happen for us, right? That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I love the passion, and thank you for sharing all of that. When it comes to, you alluded to it a little bit earlier, but when it comes to kind of the differences of these products, again, the rosin, maybe the CBD, the balms, everybody had, there's different target demographics for these products. How do you guys aim to keep like a cohesive brand, just the pillars of the brand, the messaging for the brand, while reaching demographics that vary pretty drastically?
Yeah, no, great question. And it's so funny because like in the beginning, we struggled with this concept of brand identity. And my partners were, yeah, how do you go from like starting with a topical to then like even doing the high-end concentrates, right? So in the beginning, we did bookend it. We had that early dominant area in the tinctures and the topicals, right? The most extreme version of medical or wellness, even in the packaging, all the way to the other end with the black and white, like on this high-end concentrate packaging, right? And now we have P&B Kitchen in the middle. The way we've been able to do it, the red line, as my salesperson says it, is the ampersand and the values it stands for. Solventless, regional, right? So that humble vibe, right? Authentic, tox-free, chemical-free, sustainable in our packaging. So all those things in terms of a company are true through all our brands. That's our real through line messaging. But yeah, the balm, when you look at that packaging, it's blue and white. It looks somewhat medicinal. It's definitely targeted to an older demographic that's looking for ailments. And then we put all our need state things under there, like our sleep suite, which is doing well. That's all Papa and Barkley. And then on the very other end, we have Papa Select. Papa Select does cannagars. It'll do pre-rolls soon. And right now, of course, it's doing this awesome concentrate that's an award-winning concentrate. We just released Papa Select Sessions, or Papa Sessions, which is a $40 solventless gram designed for you to sesh with your friends, hence the name, and I do hope that folks, now that we're out of the pandemic, it's cool that everybody has a dog walker, but just my opinion, I like to pass the pipe. I like to pass the joint. I do like individual dabs, but I like them to be served, right? And we should be dabbing together. We should be seshing together. So Sessions is out now, and it's a great deal. It's all the love TLC solventless, awesome ice water hash that you come to expect from Select at that right price point. Is it a little bit more amber? Sure. It's not the award winning, but why? Well, if you want the science, it's washed a little bit more aggressively, so I get a little bit more yield. So it's got a little bit more green in it, but it's still terpy. It's still melt your face yumminess, California yumminess, right? And then, of course, in the middle, we have P&B Kitchen with chocolates and gummies, all again sharing those same values of solventless, elevating cannabis flavor and terpenes. I'm not winning ice water hash competitions if I'm not a terp head, if I'm not about them terps, as they say. So how could I then righteously create an edibles brand that ain't about them terps? It's just that simple. And so even our chocolate, you can taste the cannabis. That's the point. People are often like, oh, I can taste the cannabis. It's like, I didn't realize I was supposed to mask it. In fact, the question I asked you was, does it taste good? Oh, this is fire. Right, exactly. That's the answer, right? So the way we've been able to navigate it is just staying true to the roots. Cannabis is awesome. And if you elevate cannabis and put it first, it's going to be all good. And the minute you realize that, oh, I don't have to I'm not going to, again, I don't want to be hypocritical. Butane, ethanol, CO2, they're all great. But when you realize, as Frenchie told us, that you can just shake the tree and get these trichomes out and bust them open and their terps jump out, and you can make quality products or you can dab it, well, that's awesome. And that's all we're looking to perfect. That is through all those lines. And that speaks to every cannabis consumer, I think.
Yeah, I love that. And again, thank you for sharing that as well. It's if you have something consistent that remains true, you can pop off in these different arms that maybe on paper might seem like, it's doing a lot. But when you have those core pillars holding down each thing, tying it back into the, to the parent, right? I think that's when magic really happens. So when you guys are creating, and I know you've been at the forefront of a lot of this, but when you're creating kind of new products, what's the thought process of, is this SKU get added to an existing line, or do we have to build a whole new line to house this product?
Great question. So I think now I have what I call buckets on the front end. I think we have the buckets where we can drop everything in. The only thing that we could do is kind of like the Mercedes-Benz E-Class. And I don't know if I'm trying to do that, right? Everything I have is high line and top shelf. Am I going to produce something that's like a little bit lower end or compromise my values or brand pillars? Probably not. right? So if we come out with new edibles, new gummies, we have thing. If we do flour, or we have an idea where we want to support our humble farmers, maybe doing like a Papa's co-op, like the folks in Mendo did. So shout out to the Mendo Growers Alliance, being able to take 20 farmers and partner with them and bring their products right to market and share in that margin. Again, cannabis is all about that love vibe. Right? Before we had contracts and lawyers, we had our word and handshakes. I made more money and moved more units, even with the threat of law enforcement, on just handshakes and that love of weed, right? That being said, I always want to help our partners, and I don't look at competition the same way. And so if there's a way we can empower these farmers and bring their products to market, we'd probably do that under our Select brand. Of course, as more science and innovation, our patches and different technologies come out that might help us create better cannabis medicines, we'll put that under Papa and Barkley. And then, of course, any kind of confections, mints. I want to bring back baked goods. If you remember back in the 215 days, a lot of local dispensaries would have some abuelita in the neighborhood that would bring real brownies. You don't see that anymore, right? Because our supply chain and the way we test is so onerous that by the time it gets tested, my brownie is stale. Right? Never mind the infrastructure that at scale, I got to go back like the bread man and pick up my stale ones, right? And work that. But we deserve that. We deserve real soft baked brownies and cookies and Rice Krispies treats. Those are viable ways of taking cannabis that are, I dare say, traditional. So we're looking to get into things like that, but that'll be P&B Kitchen. That'll be, that confectionery staff just bringing it to you and figuring out how to get it done. And of course, we do self-distribute. I should mention that we have P&B Logistics, that distributes all our products. We're in about 80% of dispensaries, primarily because, it's like that 80-20 rule. The 20 that we're not in are just either too far outlying or too small. No offense to them, but we're out here just doing this cannabis thing.
I love that. And when it comes to building that brand, even to the distribution standpoint, is California is an incredibly large state geographically, and is also large population-wise. There's a lot of different demographics of people in a lot of different places. So to be in 80% of those places, obviously you're speaking to a lot of people. What are some of the challenges or the things that have gone into making sure that you guys can distribute at that large of an area, and then also distribute messaging to ensure that people understand what these products are?
Great question. And I really have to give a shout out to our logistics team, because they are kind of like brand ambassadors. In order to be truly throughout the state, we have to maintain a certain level of respect and authority. I can't tell you how many times we put out packaging and one shop is like, oh, that's not compliant. And another shop is like, this is fire. And another shop is like, are you sure this is compliant? And so, we have to be able to, all the way down to the driver, has to show up and know enough about the products, enough about our processes to be like, oh, this is what's what, right? We have drivers that are more veteran than most of the dispensary workers they encounter, right? So we're blessed to have good retention, especially in our logistics department. So many of our drivers are going to dispensaries where they know more about the dispensary than the intake people that are working there. So it's taken a while to get to that 80% and really know everybody. And it's taken a lot of infrastructure. I mean, we have a hub in Los Angeles, we have a hub in Berkeley, and we have our hub here. We used to have one in Sacramento until we got a bigger place in Berkeley. So it is a lot of area to cover, but mostly the way we do it is by having those drivers be in-house, be educated, as well educated as a brand ambassador or a salesperson, so they can speak directly to the brand and all its processes. Of course, we also have a kick-ass sales team that also does a good job at educating. I think the way we established ourselves years ago was we used to have what I call an army of brand ambassadors. Back when the traditional market was switching and salespeople would hire like bud tenders and stuff to kind of be their brand ambassadors. Remember, it was kind of like that. It seemed like every bud tender was a brand ambassador for X number of brands. But we went deep on that. And at one point, it had like 40 or 50 brand ambassadors that were doing patient education days throughout the state. And at that time, we were just doing our more basic set of like topicals and tincture and patch products, but we were educating on solventless. We were educating on cannabis wellness, and how you use it as replacement medicine. And that got us a lot of shine in dispensaries. And we grew a section that they didn't even really have before we came along and started educating. And then we've now springboarded into the concentrates and then, of course, the edibles.
And when looking at, you alluded to it earlier, right? The medical days of how, hash is a booming concept right now in the recreational market, right? It's the hottest thing in the West Coast. Some of these East Coast states are getting it figured out, right? As the market matures, it becomes popular. But in the medical days, we've already kind of seen this transition. So for someone like yourself that's been around this as a legacy operator, but also kind of looks at cannabis around the country, do you feel like adult use is in any state is going to kind of follow that model of maturation that we've already seen, pre-legalization in established states like California? Although recreational cannabis is relatively new there, cannabis culture and cannabis in commerce is not any sort of new thing to the state of California. But do you kind of envision the legalization and the maturity of that industry following suit of kind of what we've seen in the past already?
Yeah, I do. And, and it's a brilliant observation. And I hope others are hearing you, right? Because we have had a long time to see users' behaviors mature in cannabis. And that's why sometimes when I see some of these trends, I'm like, really? You think that's going to work? Like beverages? We don't drink cannabis. We could have been making syrups and those things a long time ago. There's a reason why we didn't. The way we hang out and we session cannabis, I don't think that a lot of the bigger players have understood. They're looking to think that we're going to be in a bar. Like, I'm not going to mention the brand, but on their website, it says same buzz, no hangover. It's like, it's not the same buzz. I don't have a problem with alcohol. Don't get it twisted. It's like, but I like cars and I like motorcycles. I don't want a motorcycle car. I want a motorcycle and I want a car. I want to go to a bar when it's bar time, and I want to go to cannabis lounges when it's cannabis lounge time. And I don't know that I need alcohol in the cannabis lounge. That's a whole other concept. But my point is, how we use cannabis is very specific, and I'm not even willing as a professional to drop anchor on how it's going to play out now that it's really in the light. Because even in California during the 215 days, we were somewhat restricted. But now when I see, like, we have a consumption lounge here in Humboldt, and you see grandmas realizing that, oh, wait, instead of an edible and faster than a tincture, I can engage in this thing called low temperature vaporization. The young kids might call it dabbing, but your grandmother calls it aromatherapy. That's real talk, right? And now she can get into strains and nuances of the subtleties and pair it just like she does her wine and use those same skills to understand what the different profiles are, listen to her body and see how it affects. And all she has to do is take sips. Now, of course, you might be like, sips? I paid $80 a gram for this. That's right now. The whole point of legalization is we're coming into abundance. And nobody says that you have to clear your bong hit anymore or rip your entire, dab. Sip it, smell it, taste it, enjoy it, get where you need to get. And if not, come back for more. That's the beauty of cannabis abundance. We have been living here in abundance in California. So I don't think I ever scraped resin in California. I don't think I ever had to. Those kinds of things, right? So abundance is becoming to us more and more. And so that changes smoking patterns. But what we really need is destigmatization, right? Where we just normalize cannabis and we're like, nah, we're about this. And I want to understand it. And we don't walk into a bar and say, give me the strongest, give me the moonshine. We say, give me the best crafted, the best tasting. Maybe we say the new, right? Well, why can't cannabis have all those things as well? Right. So, but how we can, what is the term? Experiential cannabis, how we socialize with cannabis, that's not defined. We barely figured out dispensaries and how we're selling cannabis. But the next level is experiential cannabis. If I can't smoke at every concert, when is the concert's going to be where all we do is smoke? The best experience I ever had was Rick Ross, High Times, out in the desert some years ago. It was like I was inside a bong. And Rose comes out with this like big, he had just dropped his own champagne or something with a big bottle, just glowing, just huffing it, everybody smoking. And I remember leaving, not a cop in sight. And it was like silent as like some 3,000 people just floated out of the Knott Stadium and just disappeared into the desert, right? Yeah, I want that. And we've lost that because the thing about legalization is those of us who have been here for a while remember those kinds of events. And now it's hard to get a cannabis event permit, right? The fight is still here. We still have to fight for our rights because I'm not satisfied getting booth weed at a dispensary. I want my events. I want my cultural centers. I want it all.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny that the stigmatization of how so many of these cannabis events where you can't smoke, but you can drink liquor while we're talking about the product that we're selling. The actual event itself is furthering the stigma of the product of which they're selling. I see that hypocrisy, but you said something that really stuck out to me there in just again, the maturation of this industry and looking back and seeing it about just these trends, right? Smoking cannabis is never going anywhere. The beverage thing, I feel you. I see all these reports, beverages are going to replace smoking and this and that. And I enjoy beverages, I enjoy beer. I enjoy cannabis beverages. I think it's a great thing. I think it's going to help break the stigma and bring new people to this conversation. But I feel you. When we're talking about cannabis, anybody that's been around this, I got beverages in my fridge. I got edibles, but I'm smoking, man. I smoke weed. That's what I do. The act of breaking down weed, you're not ever going to replace that. And I feel you on the experience of what people go. And I love that thought of the aromatherapy, right? I'm gonna take that with me of with the older generation coming to smoking, because I feel you. Even if you break in through beverages, likely vaping or smoking is going to be eventually, that's at the end of that consumer. You get exposed to cannabis, you're going to end up consuming the way that this plant.
Everybody likes instant gratification. And while I like edibles, they're good for sleeping, man. I take my edibles towards the end of the evening, get that couch lock, and then I'm going to bed. But I'm dabbing and smoking all day long. Now, I appreciate that smoking carcinogens, that's a thing, but that's why we have vapor, and vape pens to me are kind of like a beer can. I feel like a vape pen can only be so much quality. Even like, we are developing, I thought I had it here, but we are developing a nice solventless vape pen. Shout out to Jetty Extracts, shout out to West Coast Cure. They already got their solventless vape pens. Shout out to Voda Extracts, my dudes in Colorado, award-winning solventless vape pens. So solventless vape pens are out. It's happening. But the thing about it is, like, when you have that oil being reheated, it's not the same as an individual dab, right? Mm-hmm. We are looking at figuring out how we get dab flights. That's the other thing in terms of experiential cannabis. When you want to come to a bar or hang out and have a nice, attractive person serve you up dab flights and be like, you and your homies, and you do like a round of the garlic cookies, and then they come around and you do a round of the purple punch, and maybe the whole night, the whole group has done a couple of grams and you get charged out, whatever. We're still figuring out how to even do all that. And of course, the regulations don't allow me to break down shit. Right. So you buy your eighth and you're supposed to be happy sitting in a corner. Experiential cannabis, just like food, it's like, I don't buy food at the supermarket or at a restaurant to cook it on a grill there. I go there and pay a premium for them to cook it, for them to serve it, and for them to clean the plates up when I leave. Right. We do that all day long. You go to a bar and for the price of one beer, you could have got that 6-pack. But you're so happy for her. And then even, when you go to a bar and you're like, oh, go ahead, you can use my same glass. You're like, no, I'll get you a fresh chilled glass because you're paying for it. When is that happening for cannabis? When am I going to show up and pay, 3-4 times the amount to have somebody, like you said, I could break it down, but they could break it down, roll the fatty, talk about it, tell me about it, school me on all its appellation and wonder, and then send it around to the group. And now everybody's excited and happy. So I'm still looking to push the envelope and find how we get those experiential things regulated. When will I be trusted to dispense cannabis like folks are trusted to dispense alcohol?
Yeah, I love that. And I am looking for that as well. And you just got me excited. I honestly wasn't excited for lounges. Everybody talks about lounges and I'm like, I don't ever want to go somewhere where I have to bring my own weed or buy just to sit around where I can do it at home. But I like, the dab flights. I'm like, you're getting, you're connecting some dots for me mentally where I'm like, okay, now I personally see the allure. I can see that. But taking it back a second, we had some comments on the live about P&B Kitchen. So I wanted to revisit that real quick because I know that news was today. You covered it a little bit earlier, but someone had asked what are the flavors and the products that are out and how they differentiate from the traditional Papa that they've been using.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. So, I got this chocolate equipment. We were excited. And so before we had the brand, we did release Papa and Barkley chocolates, both dark sea salt and milk chocolate. And we released filled caramel bites. We are going to loop those under the Kitchen brand. To your point, get things in the right order. But what you can expect from P&B Kitchen is the same high quality fair trade chocolate. We have a different format of the bar. So I had the chunky bar, now I have a flat bar, like more traditional shaped bar. So in the bars, you have 2 milk chocolate and 2 dark chocolates offering in the beginning. You have a dark chocolate with raspberry queen rock crunch and mango, I'm forgetting, I'm sorry, but mango something. And then on the milk chocolate, it's coconut and macadamia. We also, on the gummies, we have lychee, we have sour peach, we have pineapple ginger, and we have watermelon chili. Fire flavors. The watermelon is by far my favorite. Think watermelon Jolly Rancher with some tahini on it, and it's like fire. And then the filled bites will eventually migrate over to P&B Kitchen, but they're coming up in the second half of the year with cashew filled, or wait, I don't want to misquote this. I believe I better leave it to the professionals, but there'll be another filled bite besides the caramel coming this year before we close out. And then later into next year, there'll be pan bites and so on. You know, we do have a lot of awesome chocolate equipment in-house, and now we're just R&Ding and getting ready to rinse and repeat SKUs under that. But Papa and Barkley will still have the nighttime chocolate will still stay under Papa and Barkley with the CBN, the pomegranate version. The elderberry gummies will stay under Papa and Barkley's sleep line, you know, so kind of like our functional edibles will stay with Papa and Barkley, but all the like sweet, yummy flavors will find themselves, the fun flavors and fun concepts, I guess, will find themselves in P&B Kitchen.
I gotta check that out. So yeah, sir, you mentioned fair trade. Are you guys one of the only fair trade companies, edible companies?
Yeah, I believe we're the only people to get the mark. I don't want to take away from other people's shine. I think other folks may be purchasing fair trade chocolate for their products. However, shout out to Jonah Ginsburg, our chocolatier. He went through the trouble of ringing the fair trade company, wrestling with them. You know how some people get weirded out. Oh, you a cannabis company, but did the tussle with them. He had previously owned a chocolate shop and got us to have the fair trade mark. So I don't know about other cannabis companies, but we have a fair trade symbol on our packaging because it's important to us. Conversely, we don't have that same mark for our concentrates and for our topicals and our tinctures, but we do source fair trade coconut oil and especially MCT oil because, yeah, from my perspective, if corporations are going to be citizens, they need to be held accountable. And when you see our product, rest assured that as much thought has gone into not just the quality and the love of the product and the cannabis like we've talked about, but even everything outside. I want everybody in the supply chain to get paid. I want the packaging to be sustainable, right? As much work as I could do, I'm going to do for you because that's what should be expected. I want consumers to hold me accountable, hold my competitors accountable, and that's how we'll level up the game.
I love that. What goes into kind of even looking at your supply chain or just product development or refining the products you have on the market? What's kind of the thought process on how you continue to elevate or make things that are already good even better?
Great point. Great question. So I've always said that I want to formulate products that are so steeped in cannabis science that the more you know, the more likely you are to find our product. When I was a kid, there was a commercial where it was like an educated consumer is our best customer, or the Motorcycle Safety Foundation says the more you know, the better it gets. And that's how I think and encourage my formulators to think about products. Like, is it scientifically sound? Are we doing the right by the plant, right? And of course, as a solventless entity, it is a little bit more difficult to figure out certain advanced formulations, right? Finding a solventless drink formula, powdered drink formula, which is available. Shout out to Atlas Edibles because they already have one. So if you do want a powdered drink, solventless drink beverage, they have one. Ezra over there has created one. There are ways of creating these things, but when we think of innovation, first, I just think simple. For me, I do hope that universities and other people research it and we find all nano emulsions, fast titrating things. I'm for all that. But for me, from where I come from and where Papa and Barkley is, and given our name, I'd like to stick to things that were grown in garages and made in grandma's kitchen. So if I can't make it in my kitchen, it's probably not going to happen, right? And that's not disrespect to folks who use higher technology, and there's going to be a place for all that. But we're going to create quality craft things that are somewhat simple. To that end, there's going to be all kinds of flavors, all kinds of form factors, all kinds of yummy treats to come, right? So we have there's too many ideas in the product roadmap in general without even having to jump to fancy formulations or technology. And so for us, it's like, yeah, simple formulations that your grandma would make so that we can keep the TLC in there.
And that kind of answers one of my other questions, is that importance of artisan in the brand, and like and also originally like where that came from when you guys started developing products originally, of like why you felt the calling to have artisan made goods.
Yeah, it's everything. And anybody that says different is there's that meme now. Pay me for my experience, not my time. It does not matter how long it took somebody to make something, and especially when it comes to confections. With the topicals and the tinctures, you don't really notice it, but it's with the hash you do, right? Anything we consume, those subtleties Our palate is like better than any gas chromatograph, right? That's why I want you to be able to taste the strain in like the select edibles. You don't need a COA to know what's what. You shouldn't need a COA if I'm expressing, just like in food, if I'm expressing the cannabis plant the right way, it should be obvious to your olfactory and your smell and your taste senses, right? And so that's what's important. And that only comes from artists, and that only comes from passion. People talk about, oh, well, you're such a big business and, is it scalable? So when we talk about innovation, one of the questions that come up, we have a lot of great ideas. Is it scalable? So for instance, with our select gummies, they were like, can we really produce enough ice water hash and use this super process to decarb, but yet keep the terpenes and have these strain specific gummies? Well, it's not easy. And of course, I was like, look, just like everything, Nike can't produce enough of Jordans apparently, so it's always a drop. And so, yeah, for our select customers, there's a drop menu. And if you want, when you want that strawberry jam, you might need to look on the website because it's going to hit your dispensary and be sold out probably before it gets there. I don't like the whole FOMO because I don't like to play in fear. But yeah, some of our products are capacity constrained because there's only so much love to go around. But, that is sometimes I get flack from business people because they're like, no, the only way to win is scalability. I'm like, no, the only way to win is to get paid for the value of your goods. And if my artisans are putting so much damn TLC that I can only make 1,000 units a month, pay them for their experience. And so, yeah, to the folks listening, I would love to be able to have Select be closer to the $65 that Punch or 710 is at, but we don't use automation. We hand row. It's like single malt scotch over here. There's so much love in the product that it's bursting out and well worth the extra $15, $20, my opinion.
I love that. Well, and it's also, for the market, right? Obviously, if it's selling, there's a market for that, and there's a place for everything. There needs to be, every product, there needs to be a product for every consumer. Whatever their budget is and whatever they want, they can go and get that. If there's, like you said, there's a Scotch reference, right? There's plenty of liquor out there. There's $15, $10, $20, and then $40, and there's plenty of Scotch that's $300 a glass, and it's getting sold. Not everyone gets to taste it. Not everyone gets to taste it all the time. But for those that value it, the options there, and people consume it, man. And I love that approach. It's not rooted in everything you said. It's not rooted in we want to command the most price for this. Well, you said you want people to be paid for their time, so it's the whole supply chain eats, and it's a viable business model. It's not, I want to sell it at this so we can put more Ferraris in the driveway.
It's a modern kind of flex, because it used to be that we flexed that we had some money in our pocket. Now we need to flex that we are woke as fuck, pardon my French. And that's what I'm trying to go for. When you pay for our products, it's a flex. It costs more. But why did it cost more? Because it was done right, because it's sustainable, because we do the right thing. We have this thing called best in class here. And at one point, one of my investors challenged me like, well, what do you mean best in class? What does that mean? And I was like, took me a minute. And then finally I was able to come back like a month later. I was like, you know what it is? If you know better, you do better. You call me out and you say, oh, your packaging isn't this, or your cannabis isn't this. I'm going to say, thank you for that lesson. And I'm going to do better, right? That's the difference between real hustlers and people that are basic. Basic people get offended when you call them out. Real people are like, ooh, you just pulled my coat and showed me something, and I should thank you because now I'm going to learn from that and I'm going to be better next time. That's what best in class is, and that's what we always aspire to here.
Man, and that is a flex. That's a real flex right there. Obviously P&B Kitchen, just the release is, the news just dropped today. What else do you guys have on the docket for 2022?
So look, cannabis is with the taxing and the craziness, California has been hard. We kind of batten down the hatches. We want to release Kitchen. And on the second half, we're just kind of rinse and repeat. So look for new Phil chocolate bites. Look for some additional select gummy flavors for sure. But we really probably won't have anything new until the first quarter of 2023, where we will have the pan bites. Not that I'm a big microdose person, but I like to eat stuff. Right. And like, I want to give you something where you can get a handful of like 1 milligram bites and just fill your mouth with it and not feel like you're overdosing. So I'm interested in getting these 1-2 milligram micro bites out there. We've been doing R&D trying to get those right. More flavors again across the board. On the Papa and Barkley side, we have a new patch that's coming out, patch redo. In collaboration with Via Innovations. So Via Innovations, Monica Villapando, awesome formulator, created those what do they call those tabs? Those pro tabs, like so super bioavailable, totally into the nano thing, has reformulated our patches for more effectiveness. We did all these tests in terms of dermis and whatnot. So those are out like in the next week if they're not out already. We just dropped a bunch of high potency capsules because, we realized that even your grandma, she starts at 5 milligrams, but like if she's really trying to replace Advil or managing chronic pain and inflammation, we level up and we find a different point. And we realize now that people with real ailments need a lot of THC. Like if you don't have anything wrong with you, 20 milligrams might be enough. But folks with Crohn's disease or MS, they're in the hundreds of milligrams, and eating all this edibles wasn't working. So now we have some 100 milligram caps out, 10 in a bottle for 1,000. That's for the real patients, you know what I mean? So yeah, all kinds of like small innovations like that. But really in 2023, we're going to open back up and, start to look at the product roadmap. I am looking to figure out how I come out with individually portioned dabs so that maybe you can get a dab gram that has more than one flavor. Again, we got to work with the regulators because, you can't package stuff. But yeah, look, we're always just trying to be creative over here and find out what the new is. And then, of course, this year we're looking for that right pheno. Who knows what's going to be the new flavor? Last year it was that strawberry jam. I think we're getting away from the fruits and they're going to be heading back to the cheeses. That's what I see here in the cut. In the entries, the ocimines, these terpene, the ocimine and terpinolene profiles seem to be all the rage. So, just keeping it culturally relevant, seeing what's going to be the new for the year.
I love that. Thank you for sharing, Guy. I really appreciate you taking time out your afternoon and sharing some of your journey, Papa and Barkley's, all these different product lines and just those brand pillars, because I think so much of what you said is important. I learned a lot today, and I hope other people out there, especially people out there that have companies or starting companies and thinking of how to tie in these different things. I think there's a lot of game given in what you shared today, man.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we'll talk to you again next time. And then for everyone out there, this is the RMR Podcast, episode 32. Catch us on everywhere you stream fucking podcasts and YouTube and all that. We'll see you guys next time.